Yo guys, what is going on? Blossom's back and welcome back to another episode of Top Drives, and here is every single American overdrive car that we have seen so far. Now Hutch, they've been teasing this every single day with these, one pack openings that give us 5 cars each. So right now as I'm recording this, we've seen 10, but maybe by the time I'm posting this, we might have seen 15, who knows. Anyway guys, let us get into it. We'll be looking at all the cars that we've seen so far and comparing them to the cars that already exist in the game to give you a better idea on how they're going to perform. The first car that we sasaw on the first day of the teasers was the Buick Wildcat 2. Now I'm, without a doubt, I am very excited for this. Not just this car, obviously, but I'm just really excited for the update as a whole. The funny thing is, it's become a joke in the Patreon server now, where Sauber just asks, so how much effort did you put into your reveal video this time? Because every time Hutch gives me a reveal video, it really varies. If I care and I'm excited for the update, then I'll make like tons of videos about it. And if I don't care, go check out ENW, bro. I did not give a damn. I just posted the teaser video and I just dipped. But yeah, I'm genuinely excited for this update. It is something that I've been looking forward to, I would say, for a very long time. I'm not just saying that. I mean, how many times have I said on the channel that we needed a Chevrolet revamp? And we're getting some new Chevrolets in this update. But we're starting off with Buick. I think it's going to be heavy on the GM card this time. 11.90 to 60, 53 handling, 120 top speed. So it's kind of in between the Dodge Monaco and the Jaguar, in my opinion. It's got a high top speed, so it's got the top speed of like the Lincoln Continental and the Monaco. And what makes me a little bit scared is that although it has the same top speed as those two cars, it has the worst 0 to 60 of the bunch. 11.9 compared to the Monaco's 11.1, and the Lincoln Continental's 10.5. 10.5 and 11. That's a 1.4 second to 60 difference within the same exact RQ. This is the only things that you will see in the common rarity. In fact, with that being said, it's actually crazy that all of these cars are the same rarity of RQ14. The Jaguar SS100 has a 12.8 second 0 to 60, and it's still RQ14 with everything else that you see here. Yes, granted the Jaguar has like the best handling of 59, sure. So not a good showing for the Buick Wildcat in terms of performance, because it has the lowest handling out of every car that you see here, but it also doesn't have the lowest 0 to 60. So I don't know if this thing's going to be very interesting in terms of in-game performance, but it is a very interesting car. Here is something that I found really cool. The back of the Wildcat, which came out 4 years or 5 years before the 59 C1 Corvette, there is a huge similarity between those two cars. I'm pretty sure that the Wildcat was a foundational piece for things to come for GM, which we saw translated onto the body of the Corvette. So yeah, that's also just really cool to think about, like how similar those two cars look from behind. Okay, moving on to the next car that we saw is the Buick GS 400. Again, in terms of performance, I don't think it's gonna be jaw-dropping. It kind of sits in between the Volvo 242 and the Dodge D100. That is to say that it handles better than the Dodge D100, but it doesn't handle as well as the Volvo 242. That being said, it has a lower 0 to 60 compared to the Volvo 242, but it doesn't have as low of a 0 to 60 as the Dodge D100. So, in this game of top drives, you barely need a jack of all trades kind of car, and it's even weird for me to say that a car with 58 handling is considered jack of all trades, but it is trying to be a hybrid dragster kind of car because it does have a low-ish 0 to 64 in RQ25 when you compare that 7.4 compared to the Volvo's 9.9. But if you really want to go for a straight out dragster, just go for the Dodge D100. It's got a way lower 0 to 60, they've got the top speed. In a straight drag, you can always count on the Dodge instead. Also, another thing that kind of annoys me is that I don't know why, but muscle cars, they just tend to get black and white photos. And I really wish that the Buick GS had a nicer photo. I mean, look at it, how nice it looks in real life. Like seriously, it's way nicer. A lot of these older American muscle cars, they have a lot of chrome in them, And I feel like a colored photo is the best way to make the chrome stand out. So yeah, I don't know, black and white pictures, not really for me. Moving on to the Buick XP2000. Now the Buick XP2000 is literally identical to the Holden HDT Commodore. The only difference between the two cars is about 3 miles per hour. They've got the same 0 to 60, they got the same handling. So what you could expect from the Buick XP2000, you can kind of see if you own a Holden HDT. Some other cars that you might be able to compare the Buick against is the Holden HSV Manta, as well as the Alpha 75 1.8 Turbo. So it's actually really easy to gauge how well the Buick will perform. We don't know what the MRA is going to be, but we know the handling and we know the 0 to 60. So let's have a look at how the Holden performs, okay? So the Holden, just say that that's the Buick. If they have similar MRA, the Buick is going to be pretty freaking terrible. I mean, it loses to cars within its own RQ and anything twisty, and it loses to the Holden HSV and City Street Small. So I wouldn't be counting my chickens and getting too excited on the Buick. Now moving on to the fourth one, a Buick LaCrosse Super. Now up to this point, the first 4 cars that we have seen in this update have all been Buick. The LaCrosse Super 6.272, cars that it's kind of similar to that's currently in the game includes the BMW 220D, the Volvo S80 and the Mitsubishi Mirage. I think the closest thing that the Buick resembles is the Volvo S80. They're both RQ48. They both have the same top speed, the same 0 to 60, and the only difference between both cars is one handling. Unfortunately, the Buick is the one that has the latter. It has one less handling, which already makes it more useless than an already pretty useless Volvo S80. Compare that to the BMW 220, which handles a little bit better, and the Mitsubishi Mirage. It's hard for me to see the Buick LaCrosse actually being a very useful car. Now, the interesting thing about the Buick is about its engine. It actually shares the same exact engine as the Pontiac Grand Prix GXP. And as stated on the Wikipedia page, the engine is actually capable of hitting 0 to 60 from the factory in 5.7 seconds. And for a second, I was like, wait a minute, and the Buick should have a 5.7 second 0 to 60, right? Well, that's not necessarily the case. The engine might be able to make 5.7 seconds, but I think it's fair to assume that the Buick LaCrosse is a way heavier car compared to the Pontiac GXP. Also, other sources online does state, I think it was Motor Racer, I think that was what the website was called, where they tested on their track that the Buick LaCrosse Super actually did a 0 to 60 in 6.2 seconds. So that is something to think about. But I thought it was pretty cool that these two cars have the same engine, the Pontiac Grand Prix GXP and the Buick LaCrosse Super. And this is pretty common among GM models, especially during the time. So yeah, that's just one little fact that I kind of wanted to sprinkle in. Next up is the Cadillac CT6, and this car looks good. For an RQ60 4-wheel drive all-surface tire car, it does look good. Think about the Pontiac Touring GXP, which I personally believe is a pretty respectable SUV. Think about it, but slightly better, right? 7.0 in the Pontiac Touring GXP, 6.9 in the Cadillac XT6. So I think for an RQ60 all-surface tire car, the XT6 is going to be all right. You max it out, 84 handling, that's respectable numbers. And I kind of want to see how it will perform against cars like the Infiniti FX35, which is cheaper in RQ, way worse in 0 to 60, but has one more handling. And you know, in the off-road meta, handling is almost everything. Also, how it compares to cars like the RDX, which, you know, handles a little bit less, but has a lower 0 to 60 as well. So I think the XT6 is going to be a pretty decent all-surface tire car. Take that how you will, because all-surface tires aren't really that useful in the game. Next up is the Buick Electra. Now, the Electra, one thing to take note about this car is that 0 to 60. For 72 RQ, that is really low of a 0 to 60, 4.1 seconds, compared to the Volkswagen, for example, with 5.2 seconds, or the Mini John Cooper with 4.7 seconds. Now, there's no other four-wheel drive medium or high ground clearance car that's RQ72 that has the same exact handling of 8C. So this will be the first in that field. So the closest that I could get to it was the Mini John Cooper Works, which is AC1, but there's a 0.6 second difference between both the cars. So I can already foresee that the Buick Electra might be a pretty decent city street small car, and I'm even going to compare it to the Bentley Flying Spur, which I feel like they have pretty similar stats to, right? The Electra handles a little bit better, but the Flying Spur has a slightly lower 0 to 60 of 0.2 seconds, but is also 2 RQ higher. But then again, there is also 72 miles that separate these two cars. It's pretty interesting. It'll be quite intriguing to see how well the Buick Electra kind of does on like a city street small or a city street small in the wet. I think that's where you would probably want to deploy this car on because of that short burst 0 to 60. Moving on is the legendary Cadillac CT6V. I love this. I love this car and I want to get it. I love it so freaking much. Like I know in terms of like in-game performance, it's kind of garbage. I mean, it literally sits in between the BMW M760 and the Bentley Flying Spur. You know, heavy, medium ground clearance, four-wheel drive cars. But one good thing to note about the CT6V is that it handles the best. So that is what I'm particularly excited about. And it isn't having inflated RQ because it has some stupid high top speed like the Bentley Flying Spur. So I do think that the CT6V is a true AT1. That isn't really a good thing, but that is a good looking car. Out of the three, you know, the Cadillac, the BMW, and the Bentley, I think Cadillac looks the best. I'll be honest with you. Not a fan of those Bentley Flying Spur lights. I just don't like round things. And Porsche Panamera Turbo, I'm just putting it in there because like there's not a lot of cars to compare this niche with. The Panamera Turbo is the same 0 to 60 and similar handling, but it has a way higher top speed. But it'll be interesting to see how close the times are between the CT6 as well as the Porsche Panamera. Now, also another thing that I want to take note is that I was looking because I was like thinking about the car and I was like, wow, this is a pretty cool car. I feel like some pretty high profile people might actually buy this. So I was like going on Google to see like, you know, CT6V owners. Couldn't find any high profile owners, but I did find one of the owners endlessly praising it. So shout out to John Wayne from Reddit, who loves his CT6s. Anyway, moving on to the second pack that we saw on the second day, the Buick Skyhawk was the first car that we saw from that pack. Again, it looks kind of terrible. It is pretty decent for a 15. Take what you will from that level of, I guess, rarity that you're playing with. It does seem to perform better with on-paper numbers against other 15s like the Volkswagen Jetta and Geo Metro, for example. It has a pretty decent mix of not too terrible handling for its RQ and not too terrible 0 to 60 for its RQ, 12.6. It's actually closer to the RQ16 Volkswagen Polo. It even has a higher top speed, which makes me think, you know what, I think the Geo and the Jetta, they're going to go down to 14. The Polo is going to go down to 15, and the Skyhawk is going to stay at 15. I'm thinking that's what's going to happen, because 12.666 to the Jetta, the Polo is 12.766. It's just really damn close, unless the Skyhawk is like low ground clearance or something like that, which I just cannot fathom. Moving on to the second car is the Buick Regal LS. Yeah, this car looks terrible. It's terrible. Compared to other RQ29 front-wheel drive standard tire medium ground clearance cars like the Ford Kuga and even the Volvo 460, which is a pretty useless car. I don't think it's winning anywhere in like the city streets or any of the twisty track sets. Just the drags maybe. You know, 9.071 compared to the Kuga's 8.671 or even the Volvo's 8.871. Where the Regal kind of shines that it's got a high top speed of 140 for an uncommon. But bro, like, why would you use the Regal for any drag when you can use a Mustang Boss? You know what I mean? And it does, and within its niche of like medium ground clearance standard front wheel drive cars, it isn't even the car of the highest top speed, and that's why I have the Peugeot 605 at 146 miles per hour. So I don't think the Regal is going to be the best in its niche for the test pool either. You can get one car, you can get another car which is actually one RQ cheaper. So I don't think the Regal is gonna do much. Okay, moving on to Chevrolet Bolt. Yeah, that's how I kind of, that's the noise I make when I look at that car. But yeah, it's the EUV. Honestly, main competitor, the Hyundai Kona Electric. Just want to say one more time, Regal. Okay, anyway, going back, the Hyundai Kona Electric. I mean, they're really similar, right? 7.173 compared to the Kona 7.072. The Kona was a pretty useful car for me, going into the beginning of APGP. With all the challenges on the sides and stuff. So take that how you will. The Chevrolet Bolt is probably going to be equally as useful at the start of the new update. Other cars that I'm kind of comparing up against is the Chrysler PT Cruiser 7072 compared to the Chevrolet 7173, as well as the Skoda Enyaq. Now the Skoda Enyaq has a way worse 0 to 60, but the handling on the thing is really good. And the Skoda Enyaq is kind of the car to beat for its niche. It's a really, really good, you know, mono drive standard tire car that handles really well, also in that MPV SUV kind of niche. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how the Bolt actually performs as an RQ38. Beautiful photo though, ugly car. Moving on to the next one, Chevrolet Colorado with all surface tires, and I think that genuinely is all surface tires. 8.471. Again, not a lot of competition between the Colorado. I was really surprised to know we're in Top Drive 7 years, right? 4,000 cars plus. There's only one other four-wheel drive all-surface tire RQ47 car I could compare the Colorado to, and that's the Volvo V70. Everything else is either 48, 46, or below. It's crazy. The majority of the all-surface tire cars in the game are RQ45 and below. It's literally mostly low end, which kind of sucks and kind of calls for a balance. But yeah, the Colorado is going to be the second ever four-wheel drive all-surface RQ47 car in the game right now, unless like some RQ changes in the update, which I'm not too sure about. But yeah, 8.471. Handles better than the Volvo, yeah, but it has very similar stats to the Hyundai Santa Fe, which is one RQ cheaper. So I'm not sure how good the Colorado is going to actually be. Now, moving on to the next. It was the chair. That was the chair, just all. Okay, that's the chair. Okay, anyway, and this one's a bit of a meme. The Chevrolet Camaro SSX. I don't want to talk too much about the Chevrolet Camaro SSX, besides one thing. 3.788. 3.788. Bro, how many epics in Top Drives have the stats 3.788? When I saw that car for the first time, I was like, yeah, I've seen this before. I've seen this before, man. I have seen this before. Look at this! All of these cars have the same stats, and the only difference that separates them is their MRA. That's it. And maybe their top speed. So, yeah, the Camaro SSX looks like a pretty good car. Yeah, it does. Same stats as the Lamborghini Gallardo, the Lamborghini Gallardo Valentino Balboni, the Dodge Viper SRT10, the BMW M3 CS, the Lotus Exige S LF1, the Chevrolet Corvette Z06, the Alfa Romeo Giulia Quadrifoglio, the Porsche 911 Carrera S. Oh, that's crazy. Well, it's RQ74, so it's a pretty easy way to gauge what the MRA on this car is going to be. The Porsche 911 Carrera S, that thing's got an MRA of 82. And they've got the same exact stats. 3.7, 0 to 60, 190 top speed, 88 handling. So I would assume that the Chevrolet Camaro SSX probably has an MRA of like 82, 83, or 80 to 85, around that range. So take that how you will. Ladies and gentlemen, we've got another 3.788. Last but not least, the Chevrolet CERV 3. That's a good looking car. It's a really, really cool car too, and I'll be really disappointed if it's not a prize car. 225 for a top speed, 3.90 to 60, 87 handling. Like, I understand that the stats aren't that jaw-dropping. I mean, like, I feel like it's in between the performance of, like, maybe a Bugatti EB110, because the Bugatti EB110 was the only car within that RQ I could find with four-wheel drive that has a top speed of over 200. Obviously, you can think about like Ford GT90 and stuff like that, but those are rear-wheel drive cars. So in terms of four-wheel drive cars, the only cars that I could find that were like, you know, going over 200 miles per hour was the Bugatti EB110 and the Lamborghini Diablo VT. And the crazy thing is that the Chevrolet has a worse 0 to 60 compared to the Diablo, and yet it's 3 RQ higher, which makes me think that the CERV probably has like more than 100 MRA. It has to. The Diablo is already terrible, right, for an 82. 3.7 is shit. But it's got 85 MRA, which is its quote-unquote saving grace. The Chevrolet is 3 RQ higher, has a worse 0 to 60. Yes, it handles a little bit better, but man, the CERV has to have some pretty goddamn good MRA numbers to be RQ85 with those statistics. Think about it that way. Freaking Camaro is 3.788. That's 3.987. Camaro's got better base stats in terms of 0 to 60 and handling compared to the Chevrolet. This thing's gotta be good in terms of MRA, dude. But yeah, compared to the Nissan Skyline, the Bugatti, those were the only things I could find it to. But like I said earlier on, look at the things about this car, right? The body was made from an exotic mix of carbon fiber, Kevlar, Nomex, and reinforced aluminum. Much of the CERV's 3 technology is relatively commonplace today, but in 1990, it was dreamy stuff. All-wheel drive, 4-wheel drive steering, and a computer-controlled active suspension. Bro, this is like 959, but by GM. Like, the CRV3 was included in video games in the 1990s. honestly speaking, this car is prize car material. I think it's getting a little bit annoying that Hutch are selecting prize cars just because, oh, they perform good. Shut up, man. Like, prize cars should be reserved for cars that are genuinely cool, made an impact in the history of automobiles. Like it's like this, in my opinion, is prize car material. But like, if we're seeing it unpacked just like that from the pack, usually it isn't a prize car, but we will see. We will see. But anyway, guys, that's every car that we've seen so far from American Overdrive. Let me know down in the comments below, which one are you most hyped up for? For me, it's not 3.780. I think the car that I'm excited for the most actually is the CT6V. But anyway, guys, that's going to be it for today. I hope you guys have a great day. And stay safe, wash your hands, and blossom out. Peace.
Bro, this song just makes me so happy.
Me too.
Imagine being Asian in the 50s, looking nifty, leather jacket, looking sleek, look like Presley, look so deadly, got a jukebox back at home, feeling jazzy, turn it on and play it slow, like the movies with the ladies.
They so fine.
Imagine being Asian in the 50s, looking nifty, leather jacket, looking sleek, look like Presley, look so deadly, got a jukebox back at home, feeling jazzy, turn it on and play it slow, like the movies with the ladies.
They so fine.
Sit back, relax in my Bonneville Pontiac. Hold tight all night, cruise to Jacksonville
Atlantic.
Blonde hair, don't care, look like Leslie Brooks.